And we wanted to talk about the future of men. And Angelo is a mentor and a guide, and he has uh, a process that he does every year, rites of passage for boys becoming men. And he also does work with men and through his Bright Wheel organization. And he lives in beautiful Port Townsend with his beloved wife and his daughter. And so, welcome, Angelo, to Sanctuary. I'm so happy that you're here. Yeah, thank you for being with me today and agreeing to do this. And
thank you for having me, Char. It's an honor to be here and to be a part of this conversation.
yeah, it's my honor to be with you. And so I think that the future of men is an interesting conversation. I think that, I feel so blessed to have so many incredible humans in my life, male, female, and non-binary, and all of the things in between, and around, and above, and below, and within. So, I think it's really interesting to think about male, female, non-binary, and I think it's interesting to think about where we are right now. And um,
Mm-hmm.
so I wonder about, of course, my questions are all related to how do we create sanctuary for one another, and within, internally, and externally, and for our communities. And so I'm just curious about, what comes to mind for you. How can we be a sanctuary for each other? I think that that's like the beginning and ending question, you know. But um, but yes, I'm
Yeah,
wondering about that.
great question. Um, well, the first thing that comes to mind with that question, I think of validation. Um,
Mm.
uh, to be going through this paradigm, like everyone, women are changing, men are changing, non-binary. We're all evolving, and there were certain expectations that were alive. Essentially, before we were even born, people have these ideas when they're going to have a boy or a girl. When they think they're going to have a boy or girl, they start ascribing these stories about what that will be like and who we might be. And um, Leticia Nieto calls that like the box of convention. And
Mm.
conventions that we get born into. And when I think about creating a safe sanctuary for one another, I think about how can we begin to validate what is, instead of projecting our ideas on one another of what should be.
Mm.
Because I feel like the future of men, as you had mentioned the other day, is in the children, it's in the boys.
Mm. Yeah.
And we're all responsible. Every adult is responsible for caretaking that future and for
Mhm.
and growing that future. And so I consider, when I come across any client of any age, um, how much validation can I bring to what they're experiencing emotionally, instead of, I think the old paradigm was that there are certain emotions that are okay for men to have and some
Right.
that are less desirable. And that's just not true. When we negate or subdue, manage any of them, we end up impacting, affecting, and limiting all of them to some degree. So, how can we validate what is happening?
Validation. Yeah.
Yeah. And how can we listen um, and really feed the dreams and passions that young men are having. They're yeah.
Yeah, that is beautiful. And you work with a lot of young men, and this is something that you've been doing for years, for many years, and taking them like in through this year program. Is it a year or is it 9 months or?
It used to be a year. Now we do an initiation each summer,
Mm,
and then we have opportunities to get together. And we're in community essentially, for the rest of their time, as long as they're in the community. I
yeah.
see young men that went through the program, 15 years ago, and when they visit town or if they're in town now, they're 30 years old, you know.
Yeah.
Uh,
Oh, Angelo.
so it's a
Wow.
see them like come into who they are and be in relationship and community and yeah,
Yeah,
thriving,
thriving. And,
thriving.
that's such a great thing. And I think that's the thing that everyone should have the opportunity to thrive in whatever ways are true for them. And
Yeah.
that it's, and to find that truth and what is thriving for each individual and, male, non-binary, female, like what is thriving for you as an individual and how can you experience, you know, I mean,
Mm.
I don't know if freedom is the right word, but how can you experience your own goodness and who you really are and see your own goodness um, and it's one of the interesting things. Like one of the things that is easy to say is that we need to learn to love
Mm.
again,
Yeah.
and it's easy to say that, but it's hard to do. Loving
Yeah.
is hard. So I think there's like something that we talk about and we say, oh, we're going to be loving toward each other and we're going to see one another's goodness, and it's hard to remember that when you're in the middle of having an opinion about what someone else should do or be or how they should behave. So I think that there's something important about your work, which is like teaching, how do you teach them the hard work of loving? Like
Go
how do
question.
you do that? Like how does that work?
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
passage work, it's built into the ceremony itself, where
Mm,
I think about being of service, like the joy,
mhm,
the arms of love. One of the ways we know that we're loving is when we're being of service to something, more than just ourselves,
mhm,
when we're in service to the community or to another human being. And so in rites of passage work, what I do is I gather a group of men and we place these teenagers at the center of our attention. They know that they are the most important thing,
mm,
heals a lot of the false narratives. I'm not important. It doesn't matter what I do, what I choose to do with
mm.
those. Did a heart?
Mm.
Oh, someone just I think hearted my.
Yeah,
Just
Beth
off.
is here. Hi, Beth. Hi. Hi, Susan. Yeah, they
Oh,
compress on the heart and then it like lets you know that they are appreciating what you're saying. So you were
that's
just talking about appreciation. And so someone was appreciating what Beth was appreciating what you were saying. There's a
great.
little good morning, Beth. Oh, see, there's the hearts.
A flood.
It's so sweet. Oh,
Yeah,
so sweet.
so it heals a lot of those stories which we've been in the midst of for some time. People,
Yeah.
with technology and feeling like they can, so many opportunities for us to not choose to value our time and energy. And so rites of passage is the remedy, the opposite of avoidance.
Oh,
So
so
then,
attention, the opposite of avoidance. So
yeah,
giving attention and validation. And so you're giving them, hi, Jennifer, hi, Susan, is right? Attention is it's the opposite of avoidance. I love that. And validation.
Yeah. And we show them that it does matter what we choose to do with our time, and the joy
Mhm.
being of service to someone else, to something else. I love
Mm.
Hopi. The Hopi elders have taught that the time of the lone wolf is over.
Mhm.
Um, and many traditions, suggest that we're all related. And so when I think of, some of the aspects of healthy masculine expression, I think of protecting, preserving, caretaking what we love and value. That could be another human being, that could be nature, it could be
Yeah.
music or writing, but it's important that, and it's inherent in the rite of passage program that we're taking care of something outside of ourselves. And of course,
Mm.
we're receiving healing. The men are receiving healing through this
Right.
also, but that's not why we show up. We show up because the future is important, and
Mhm.
to acknowledge that and help these teenagers um, perhaps receive that message of
Yeah.
how crucial their voices, their actions are. Their
Yes.
so
Yeah. Absolutely. And I like this, healthy masculine. And so if we look at the unhealthy masculine, like what do you see with the unhealthy masculine, or how do you see that? I mean, we have some pretty obvious representations right now in in our world, but unfortunately. But then we know what not to do, right? Uh,
yeah.
and so yeah, so I think that it's interesting you got a little blurry.
Oh, did I?
Yeah, interesting.
Your internet is unstable. It
Oh,
says.
that's fine. Okay. Well, we're gonna ask that it stabilize because this is an important conversation.
Yeah.
Um, so I just wonder about that. Like, what do you see as the unhealthy? How do you address the unhealthy? Like, some of the unhealthy things I see are, one up male, female, or non-binary. That is like the unhealthy of the dynamic nature. If we want to degenderize it, we would say the dynamic nature, like the sun,
Yeah.
we look to the sky for the dynamic nature, we look to the earth for the magnetic nature or the feminine nature. So we could just simply say, the unhealthy of the dynamic nature, or the ways that it might express itself. How do you address those ways of, yeah, the kind of the one up, or the thrill of the chase, or
Oh, yeah. Or what I want is more important than what's for the good of the.
right.
I think of the sun, I think of the sky when I think of dynamic nature, and I think of, well, how am I impacting the atmosphere? The ability, the healthy masculine is going to recognize, oh, I have the ability to bless, to protect,
Right.
to feed the collective. And then, the unhealthy is going to center themselves
Mm,
and might be critical instead of bless. They might
mm,
blame or shame or protect their own um, circumstances. If they're
right.
fragile, they will protect themselves and not be open-hearted. And so um, the unhealthy masculine, I think, would not be conscious of their impact and not responsible for the power and privilege that they have, and go around wounding others,
Mm,
blaming others, instead of recognizing um, the opportunity to like safeguard, and the joy of like
um,
guarding what is sacred and beautiful
yeah.
world. And so we have to recognize what's sacred and beautiful to us, and then
Yeah.
um, and then understand that we have the power, we have the ability to do something, to caretake, to safeguard, to preserve, to think about something more than protecting ourselves. And we all have that ability. Men have been centered and given the choice
Yeah.
for so long. We know how to do that for others. If we've received
Mhm.
that, we can do that for our loved ones.
Oh, yes.
And we
Yes.
have received.
That's important. Yeah, if
Yeah.
we've internalized something, then
Yeah.
we know how to give it to others, and we know how to offer it, and yeah, absolutely. And so I think that when I think of the sun, I think of warmth,
Mm,
right? But I also think of like extreme heat,
yeah.
and I think that that centeredness, that and we live in a very narcissistic culture. I mean, that's something that we're all fucking narcissists, and we all have to figure our shit out because it's just absurd, and we're destroying our very home.
Yeah.
We're destroying our home. Like, what is fucking wrong with it? Um, so it's just like because we just lack the ability to consider, like you said, to consider others, and so we want to develop that, and some of us were like kind of born into that service,
Mm,
right? We were born into that like way of seeing and way of service and way of considering others. But still, I'm going to get my vanilla latte at the wah wah wah, and I'm going to do it every day, and I'm going to have I'm going to have my trip to the such and such and I'm going to have all this gasoline, and I'm not going to plant the trees I need to plant in order to offset so it's just interesting, like I think there's something about just thoughtfulness,
mm,
just like thoughtfulness and to think before we act. And what I want to say, Angelo, is that male, female, or non-binary, we all have these things.
yeah.
We all have the shadow of the masculine. We all have the shadow of the feminine. We all have the shadow of the non-binary, and all of them have shadows, right? Like the non-binary is about unity and creating unity and leaving good legacies and about using the voice and right. But the shadow of that is creating, disbursement or fragmentation or right. Just
Mm,
like with the masculine, like the good, the true, and the beautiful, the masculine, or the good, the true, and the beautiful, the dynamic is to be able to move into the silence and to reflect and to be able to provide warmth and to be
mm,
dynamic and to move in a dynamic way and to move with energy and power, or like I said, the thrill of the chase, or there's a lot of different um, ways that in the shadow of the masculine around competition and competing and right. So but there's also all of this beauty in the masculine of the warmth and the life and the love and the right and the protection, or that ability to protect and care for. But also with the feminine or the magnetic nature, there is this like the shadow of the magnetic, secret harming, gossiping, going around behind people, right? So
mm,
those are some of the covert feminine or the covert magnetic. And then of course the the communication of the feminine, that ability to speak and to say what is so and to say what is real and authentic, and then the ability to um, how the feminine nature or how the magnetic nature is able to see and to know, and the visionary gifts and the visionary skills of the magnetic nature, and which
mm,
is more like the moon, right?
yeah.
And then of course to the how together what we can do is we can bring new life. We bring new life together, and we can do that. We
Mm,
can bring new life, and we gestate and we nourish and we nurture. And so, male, female, or non binary, we all have the capacity to nurture. We all have the capacity to speak. We all have the capacity to reflect. We all have the capacity to bring unity or fragment things. We all have the capacity to bring warmth and to protect, right? All people have that ability. So, it's that ability to recognize we have all of them, and we need to be developing all of them. Right? Like, should I develop my magnetic or my magnetic or my integrative natures? Well, all fucking three of them.
yeah. Right.
All three of them, right?
That is all of us.
Yeah. All of us. So we're talking about male, female, and non-binary, but we're also talking about magnetic, dynamic, and integrative natures, right? And so I am curious about, when we think about one of those, well, any human being, but one of those people deciding to control other people,
Yeah.
or, creating my nose. So when one person is deciding to control another person of any kind, or one person is having power over, instead of lifting up or empowering, we run into some problems. So I'm just thinking about
A little
that.
bit.
So, yeah. Just the one up thing, like, right? What's that?
I said nothing major, just a little problem.
Yeah, just a little problem. No kidding. And so, I mean, as a culture, we do need a rite of passage. And how do you see that being able to happen, having worked with men and with boys all these years? And when you are working with someone who has a real issue with one up, how do you work with that? How do you move with that or address that?
Well, for me, when those, most of this stuff starts, most of the positive change, I believe, begins with just exploring how that's alive in me. And each of
Mhm.
us is responsible for doing that work. And for me, when those urges come, I'm afraid. I'm scared. When I want to control, when I want to do like a power over, there's something that I'm scared of.
Oh, interesting.
And 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 so just exploring, what am I afraid of, and sharing. So one part of how I work with that in other people is I really track my impact. As possible, I speak, and
Mm.
without shaming, without blaming, without criticality.
Mm.
Teenagers, it's like, how can we put them at the center of our attention in a loving way, in a supporting way? And so sometimes, like, teenagers and not teenagers want to, like, just be doing their own thing. And that has an impact on the group.
Yeah.
And so, how can we, instead of criticizing and saying, hey, why aren't you showing up the way that I think you should be showing up in the world right now? It's like, how can I bring the attention towards them, which is what people usually want, in a loving way, in a caring
Mhm.
way, in an empowering way, to let them know how good they are, how powerful they are. And so there are different ways of doing that,
Yeah.
in a circle. But that's really the work, is becoming a safe space for people to, like, I heard this term once, how do I have to be so that you can be free?
Right. How
You,
do I have to be so you can be free? Fuck yeah, boom. That's it.
and yeah, and so without sacrificing some part of myself that is
Yeah.
not be sacrificed. And so that's what I feel like the work is with teenagers at this time. And teenagers are going to express themselves that are uncomfortable for their parents and for adults. It's going to seem counterintuitive or wrong in some way, or violent, but the work really is, as I like, where I began, like, how can I see how it makes sense, how can I validate it, how can I center what's happening, and maybe direct that energy in an empowering way for the group.
Okay.
Because
And so,
that's what everyone want. I think what I've seen young men want to know, that they're having a positive impact, that they're creating something
mm,
beneficial for
mm,
others. Men love to feel useful. And,
yes,
you know,
yes.
and
Yeah, we all do. We all do. Yeah.
like they're
Yeah,
contributing something. Yeah, we all do, exactly.
Yeah, we all do. And I think that's the thing is that we're not different, you
Yeah.
know? I mean, we really are. We really want the same things. I mean, we really want the same things. I mean, of course, we have different beliefs and different things that, may impact that and different spiritual beliefs and so on and so forth. But I think that, our evolution as human beings really is about choice
Yes.
and everyone being able to choose you
Yeah.
know, everything about themselves, right? And to not make choices for other people. Um,
Mm.
I think there's this poem called If by Rudyard Kipling. And one of my brothers, this is his favorite poem. And I remember he sent it to me. And I really appreciated this. I appreciated that this was something um, that he felt he wanted to live by. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, I should have read it before I'm reading it now, but I'm going to read it now anyway. But if you can keep your head when all about you are losing theirs and blaming it on you, if you can trust yourself when all men doubt you, but make allowance for their doubting too. If you can wait and not be tired by waiting, or being lied about, but don't deal in lies, or being hated, don't give way to hating, and yet don't look too good nor talk too wise.
Wow.
You can dream and not make dreams your master. If you can think and not make thoughts your aim, if you can meet with triumph and disaster and treat those two impostors just the same. If you
Mm.
can bear to hear the truth you've spoken, twisted by knaves to make a trap for fools, or watch the things you gave your life to broken and stoop and build them up with worn out tools. If you can make one heap of all your winnings and risk it on one turn of pitch and toss and lose and start again at your beginnings and never breathe a word about your loss. If you can force your heart and nerve and sinew to turn, to serve your turn long after they're gone.
Mm.
So hold on when there's nothing in you except the will which says to them, hold on. If you can talk with crowds and keep your virtue, or walk with kings nor lose the common touch.
Mm.
If neither foes nor loving friends can hurt you, if all men count with you, but not too much, none too much. If all men count with you, but none too much. If you can fill the unforgiving minute with 60 seconds worth of distance run, yours is the earth and everything that's in it. And which is more, you'll be a man, my son.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I hadn't read it for a while, but I'm grateful. It's so beautiful. And I think that this is something so powerful for anyone to think about. But in your work with boys and with men, I think
Mm. Oh,
purpose is today as it was in 1865.
yeah. I mean, that is just something to aspire to. And I think you're right. Yeah, having something that we can think about and that inspires us and that we can
Mhm.
aspire to is really important. So that was called If
By Rudyard Kipling.
by Roger
Yeah.
Kip
Rudyard. Uh,
Rudy.
yeah. Kipling, Kipling. It's a very famous poem and it's public domain.
Uh,
But if you can trust yourself when all people doubt you and make allowances for their doubting too, like, oh, doubt is good, or, triumph and disaster, two imposters just the same.
yeah.
It's an imperfect poem, like all poems. I'm a poet, so I know how it is. Um, but, watch the things you gave your life to broken and stoop to build them with worn out tools.
Mm,
No, just like that's life.
yeah.
Start again at your beginnings.
Yeah.
Right? The only thing that's important, I think, that here that he has that's kind of, is like not I think there's something about the feelings and to have our feelings, but the key here, I think that maybe what he's talking about is not splashing them everywhere,
Mm,
like they're our feelings, and not everybody else is experiencing our feelings,
Yeah.
right? So, hi, Chelsea. Oh, Chelsea joined us. Um, yeah. So, how do we, get these, um, do I want to call them character qualities? But what I know is like, I know my grandfather had amazing character qualities, right? My brothers, all of them, right? My
Mhm.
brother Quinn is
Mhm.
amazing character, and is also very funny, right? My brother Michael. So I have these beautiful brothers that have so much character, and they're human also, and fucks things up and do weird things, like we all do. They're like we're all weirdos, trying to figure shit out. But also there's goodness, and I
Yeah.
think that is the thing.
Yeah. And that's powerful. Yeah, just having someone, or in your case, many people that
Mhm.
that are reflections of that goodness, that have the
Mhm.
quality.
Yeah. I
I
also have a lot. Go ahead. Sorry.
well, I just think about what inspires us, we carry, we have inside of us, and we're growing towards that. So just something we can do is pay attention to who or what we're inspired by, and recognize that we're integrating whatever we're and whoever we're attracted to, we're integrating that into our life and into our nature, and it's something we already carry. So I think that's powerful, that a powerful practice, to take time to reflect, remember and reflect on what we've been inspired by, and who are the people, what are the character qualities that they carry. And maybe there's one that I want to choose, that I want to like focus on developing and growing and integrating in my life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that that is wonderful. So I think that, the development of character, Toni Morrison gave a talk, I think it was one of with Charlie Rose. I'm not sure, but it was one of her talks. And because I read everything that I can get my hands on, and watch everything that she's done that I can get my hands on. But I believe it's that talk, where she's talking about goodness and
Mm,
how, you know, evil has the same shtick every time. It has a top hat, it has the nails, it has all the things. But goodness has been minimized as not as intelligent, or not as compelling, or not as right. And so
mhm,
she said, I'm ad-libbing here. This is not a direct quote, but what she said is, she really focused her energy on writing books that put goodness at the forefront, or
mm,
that had characters that where goodness was a really important part of what she was trying to draw attention to in her career. So I think that, and if you've read her books, there's a lot of contrast of really good and really terrible, and but um,
mhm.
I appreciate that thought about like kindness and goodness. And I think that our future is dependent on kindness and on goodness, and on, being in right relationship with each other, and on doing the right thing, in a way where it's like, am I thinking about do no harm, hurt no one,
Yeah,
you know, affect affect others to the best of our ability, in ways that are beneficial, in ways that are supportive, in ways that are nourishing. And if it's not for the very, very good of all, and maybe they have a different experience of it than I do, right? Like maybe something that might be good for you might not be good for me. And so then we're gonna have to learn something called fucking motherfucking communication, communication. And so that, which means I'm going to ask you, I'm going to talk to you about it, right? And so I think that that is also something where it's like asking and permission and checking it out and taking our time, and not
mm,
being, the hustle is the hustle, but not being in the hustle, not being in the rat race,
yeah,
because then we end up just being a bunch of rats,
yeah.
which I love rats, don't get me wrong.
I
I
love
had a rat.
it.
When I was a kid named Louise, my pet rat Louise, she was amazing on my shoulder. I had several pet rats, but so it's not about that, but you know what I'm saying.
I love what you're saying. Yes, I do. And I love what you're saying. And like I agree. It's like goodness is, how we center that
Yeah.
good. And I love what you said about the do no harm. You know, I thought about when you said that, I was like, oh yeah, like Gandhi, his autobiography, I think it was called something like The Story of My Experiments with Truth.
Oh my
It
God.
was it
I
wasn't
know
like
that.
he's known for, doing no harm, like for peace and for
Yeah.
and but that's where um his focus was on how can I be honest and truthful, and
Mhm.
that desire to be good and honest and truth him led him to a life of do no harm, of creating peace, of
Mhm.
form of communication that was so powerful that it changed the entire system
Mhm.
and culture. And so, yeah, centering peace and learning how to communicate, like recognizing that communication is, I love Angela Sarian's like speaking the truth without blame or judgment, but
Yeah.
communication is about learning how to just be
Yes.
are.
Yes.
We're communicating when we're not speaking, and do I love myself? Am I love our,
Mhm.
that's what we will be communicating, whether we're speaking or not speaking, and so how can we learn to love ourselves, and how can that be what we help the future do, the children, the teenagers, how can we help them love and cherish who they are and help them recognize how important they are.
Well, I agree. And of course, our actions are our only legacy, what we do.
Yeah,
So our actions are our only legacy, what we fucking do, how that all comes out. Um, so my curiosity is, there's a lot of these really macho kind of sexist um, uh, people who are out there doing a lot of social media and YouTubes and so how do you address that when you see it in the youth or when you see it in the men you're working with? How do you work with that and address it in order to turn it in a more positive direction? Because male, female, or non-binary, we all have to root all of those isms out of ourselves, right? All of the racism, all of the sexism, all the homophobia, all of those things, we have to, address those things in ourselves and in others. Um,
yeah.
and, and as a mixed race person, as a queer person, it's, I work on that a lot, and as someone who is, yeah.
Well, a couple of things to mind. One is wherever I place my attention, that's where my vital life force goes. And
Mhm.
learning how to redirect the attention can be helpful, but also not being conflict avoidant, or, you know,
Right.
learning how to um, say that's not how I feel. That's not what I, you know, that's not what is going to happen here. Or, you know, learning how to, without shaming, blaming. That's another
Right.
that's another thing Leticia Nieto would talk about, wrote in the book, is that people that blame or shame in the pursuit of social justice and equity are actually not helping. They're not, it's not helpful.
Love her work so much.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's brilliant. And so, how am I going to address and redirect the energy without shame or blame, but without colluding, agreeing, or
Right.
like avoidance is one of the key challenges we're having these days. And And so, we become complicit with what's happening if we avoid it. We allow it to continue happening. So,
Yeah.
um, and we all have friends, we all have family members that feel differently than we do.
Yeah.
So it's learning about, well, what's important here? Do I need to adjust things? Is someone being harmed? That's the real thing. Is someone being harmed by what's happening? And can I use my power and privilege to help or to
Yes.
heal? And when I help and heal, my desire is to do that for everyone, including the person that might have said or done the thing that is not helpful or healing.
Mhm.
So that's
Yeah.
a mind. And I don't have any, answers for that. I think it's an ongoing, every situation is different, and we're in
Mhm.
changing um, circumstance where there's a lot of harm being done many different ways. So,
And I think doing what we're doing and talking about it and, bringing attention to ways that we can change it in a more positive and beneficial direction, but just simply to have the conversation. And I know in, a lot of my classes, and some of my classes are like more than 50% men, and sometimes sometimes they're equal measure of male, female, and non-binary, and sometimes there's a lot of non-binary, and sometimes there's a lot of women, but that they really balance out. And I love that about my classes. You know what I mean? Like, and about any of my offerings, that I really am offering them for everyone because I want us to be in community. I want us to be in common unity. I want us to be able to really care for each other and to communicate and to be able to commit to doing things together that are, you know, for the building of
mm,
up of each other and caring of each other, and and really seeing each other, and really also being able to call one another in, not call out, but call one another in, and and have the hard conversations and the loving conversations. And um, because we are tribal creatures, we're pack animals, so we want to be able to do that in a way that's going to be a blessing to everything,
mm,
right? As you said, blessing, that we can learn how to bless. I think you had a poem that you wanted to share. Do you want to bring
sure.
that into the conversation? Seems like a
Yeah.
good time.
This is called Shoulders by Naomi Shahib Nye.
Mm.
A man crosses the street in rain, stepping gently, looking 2 times north and south because his son is asleep on his shoulder. No car must splash him, no car drive too near his shadow. This man carries the world's most sensitive cargo, but he's not marked. Nowhere does his jacket say fragile, handle with care.
Mm.
His ears fill with breathing. He hears the hum of a boy's dream. Deep inside him, oh, he hears the hum of a boy's dream deep inside him. We're not going to be able to live in this world if we're not willing to do what he's doing with one another.
Mm.
The road will only be wide. The rain will never stop falling. That's Shoulders by Naomi Shahib Nye. And I think of that poem, like it's about his son on his shoulder and carrying his son, but really, when I think about that poem, I just think it's important that we each have some things that we're carrying like that
Mm.
and on our shoulder that we're taking care of. And we treat it like the most sensitive cargo, that we have the world in our hands. So,
Mm.
you for reminding me about that poem.
Well, and I feel that way with you, my friend.
Hmm.
I feel, like that precious cargo when I'm with you. And yeah, it's a gift to be carried like that. And, you've always been that way with me. And I'm so grateful. Those
Oh,
are the reasons we're so close. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel that too, that we've carried each other, and
Yeah,
one of the great blessings of my life.
yeah, mine too.
Mm, thank you.
Well, I wanted in closing just to ask you, what is the work that we can do together to support all of us, including our men, our women, our non-binary people, in doing the work that is needed for this time? Like, what comes to heart or to mind, or what is the work of this time that's doable, that we can actually do?
Well, um, I mean, the first thing that comes to mind is the rites of passage work. That's something we can do
Mhm.
together, is support rites of passage.
Yeah.
Um, and this isn't something I've mentioned before, but the reason why it works, or one of the many reasons why it works, because of those stories that we were talking about before, that the culture has about who we are and our parents have about who we are, and all of those things, the rites of passage ceremonies, especially the traditional ones, they disorient us. They take us out of our normal circumstances. They disorient us and they dismember those old ideas.
Oh, yes, they do.
That's why they're
Yes, they
so cool and challenging. They
yeah.
literally member what's not true in our nature, and we get to have an experience, an actual experience of who we actually are beyond anyone's perception, anyone else's perception. And so I see that as one of the most powerful things we can do together. I actually made a list just 3 minutes before we got on this
Oh
of
my
like
gosh!
we can do. And this is my list of 6 things, I guess.
That's
Uh,
great.
some of what we've talked about. One is acknowledge and validate all emotional expression. Acknowledge and validate
Mm,
all emotional expression. Not necessarily harmful actions,
mm,
but emotional expression. Um, we can we can think about education that includes responsible use of power and privilege, like being of service, learning when and how to hold space versus taking up space.
mm,
Like when and how can we hold space, and when and how can we take up space? Having some education around that. Uh,
mm,
we can really support connection to nature. How can
mm,
we support connection to nature? Um, we can center healthy masculine like leaders and figures.
mm.
This is the reflection that we want
Right.
for young men, and we can like listen and track and nourish gifts, passions, and dreams. That's something
Mm,
to do with the youth, is like really some listening skills and nourish their dreams and passions. So
yeah,
that's my list of 6 things. That and the rites of passage, of what we can do together.
that's so beautiful, my friend. And I think also, I mean, I have many beautiful nibblings and nephews and nieces, and you know, I mean, they're so perfect. Like, our children are perfect. And the children in our we're all born perfect.
Mm,
And just to be able to remember that we're all born that way, and to nurture that
mm.
perfection in one another, that original perfection,
I
that
love
pure and innocence that we all carry. And I mean, my nephews, and knows them, and just the blessing of the goodness that we all carry, we all have it. And And also, I think one other thing that just came to my mind as you and I are talking, of course, because we're dear, dear friends, is friendship. You know, just the ability to befriend one another and to, and you also talked about honesty and truthfulness and, and to discern, nourishing each other, being able to, choose wisely and use our discernment and to choose people who are nourishing and who, and if they don't know how to be nurturing and nourishing, are willing to learn how to do it,
Mm.
right? Because everything about being on planet Earth is about nourishing and nurturing and seasons of life. And so thank you for being in all these seasons of life with me, my friend. And
Thank
thank
you.
you for coming and having this conversation with me today. I cherish you. And
Cherish you
um,
too. I have the same question for you, and that may be what you just shared. Like,
what is that?
how can we be in this work together from your perspective? And I feel like what you just shared is part of that, recognizing that they're perfect,
Yes.
and friendship, like, really developing strong
Hmm.
and
Yeah. And yeah, I think that that is so beautiful to, because it hasn't always been this way, but right now all my closest friends are men.
Mm,
So which has really been a surprise for me. And I was actually talking to your wife, Sukrita, about it. I was like, oh, is this just such a, and it's interesting to me that it would be a surprise to me. Why would it be a surprise to me, right? So it's just interesting to think about, like, oh,
mm,
the closest people to me right now and the deepest friendships. And of course, I have also very deep friendships with women, and who are also, like Saniva and I are very, very close. And
mm,
um, so, but it's just interesting for me to think about that. So I think that friendship is one of those things. And it's interesting. I have someone where, um, you know, I will protect my friends.
mm.
I will care for them and cherish them. My hope is that all of us are so aware and awake that we don't need to protect our friends. We don't need to be protected because by the very quality of interaction we're having, it's not necessary anymore.
Right. Yeah. That
You
would
know, that it would be great if we were, you know, and of course, there's no tigers or bears, we're the problem and the solution. you know so I think that's one thing. And I also think, like, having the conversations and being able to say, oh, is that what you really wanted to say, or do you know how that's landing with this other person, and to not do surface,
mm,
but to have conversations of depth and honesty and truth, and real conversations
yeah.
that challenge us and that ask us to fucking change, because change we must.
Beautiful. Thank you. Yeah. So true.
Yeah.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Thank you, my friend. What an honor and privilege to be with you. And thank you, everyone, for joining us. And yeah, you can explore more of Angelo's work at Bright Wheel. And do you have a way for folks to contact you for rites of passage if they have any boys in their lives? We all have boys in our lives, so who might
Yeah.
want to contact you.
Yeah. I mean, through the brightwheel.org,
Mhm.
um,
Great.
the rite of passage button is one of the buttons, and information. There will be another rite of passage next summer for teenage.
Mm, great.
Thank you.
Thank you, my friend. I love you, and I'll see you soon.
I love you too.
Mm.